But they were so intense that I said, Kelvin, I need you to look down there and see what's going on, because I almost feel like I have to push. And he looked down and he was like, oh my God, I see the head. So Damaris was like, okay, Sierra, if you feel like you have to push, then you go ahead and push, and Kelvin can catch her. She said she was still 45 minutes away. I was 36 weeks pregnant and 5 days. So 36 weeks and 5 days pregnant. I had a snow day. I'm a dance teacher, and this day it snowed or iced a little bit. And so we didn't have any classes at all. And I decided with my day off that I was gonna paint. For some reason, I was gonna paint my bedroom wall. I had been planning it for a while, but I hadn't actually gotten to actually painting it. And so that was a perfect day for me to do it. So I started painting early that morning, and I got done around 1 p.m. painting. And at 3, I started noticing that I felt like I was kind of peeing on myself. And I came to realize that I wasn't peeing, I was leaking amniotic fluid. And so I called my midwife and I told her that I thought I was leaking amniotic fluid. I didn't think I was peeing on myself, but that's what it felt like. And so she brought over some test strips, and sure enough, it was amniotic fluid. I didn't have that issue with my first child. I didn't know. It was very unexpected, because with Kai, that's my first daughter, my water never broke. It didn't break until right before the push before Kai came out. So I never had an experience with my water either gushing, breaking, leaking, nothing like that. So this was completely new and foreign to me, with my water breaking, or not breaking, but leaking. So after we realized it was amniotic fluid, my midwife told me that I needed to just completely rest. I needed to move as little as possible, because if I moved, then I risked getting infection. She made me take my temperature every few hours just to make sure that I wasn't spiking a fever or getting close to getting an infection. And she told me that entire Sunday that I needed to just chill and relax. We had an appointment set up for that Monday when I would be 37 weeks. And she said that she would come in that Monday morning, see how the baby was, and then if we felt like it was in a good spot, then she was gonna induce me naturally so that I would have the baby that Monday. That Sunday, I just completely chilled. I did Zoom classes with my kids at the dance studio, because she told me that I couldn't move, I couldn't go to the studio. So I did Zoom rehearsal while they were at the studio. While they were at the studio, I was at the house on Zoom, moving as little as possible because I didn't want to get an infection. And I knew at any moment I could start feeling like contractions or anything, but they never came. I never felt contractions. I never felt movement like that. I mean, the baby was moving just regular, just fine, but I never felt any kind of like movement as far as birth is concerned. So Monday morning came, and my midwife came at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. We did our regular appointment checkup. She felt around to see how big she felt the baby was, and she estimated that Zaya was around 6 pounds. So she said she felt like it was safe for us to deliver, even though it was a few weeks early. She felt like it was still safe for us to deliver at home and not have to go to the hospital. So she gave me a recipe for a smoothie that would help induce me naturally. And she said that she had some appointments and stuff to do. Once I took the smoothie, I would use the bathroom within 30 minutes. And then within a few hours after that, I would start having contractions. So she said she had some other appointments that she had to run and that she would be back. So my friend was at this grocery store actually when she gave me the smoothie recipe. So I asked her to go ahead and get some of the ingredients for me. The ingredients in the smoothie was castor oil, of course, a little bit of castor oil, some almond butter, a little bit of champagne because the bubbles help like cut the castor oil. I don't know, I think I made that up, but there was something about the bubbles with the champagne. And then apricot nectar. And so I finally got those ingredients at the house. When I got them, Kelvin went ahead and blended them up and in a smoothie. He blended them in a smoothie and I went ahead and drank it. When I first drank it, oh God, it was nasty. I guzzled it. Well, I guess not guzzled it, but I drank it as fast as I could. I could not guzzle it though. It was so nasty. So it took some time. But after I got it down, I waited for a little bit and then I ended up throwing it up. And so I called Damaris, that's my midwife. I called Damaris and I told her that I threw up, and she said, just wait it out and see if anything happens, it still could have an effect on me. And so just wait it out. So we waited, and about 30 minutes after I took the smoothie, I ended up using the bathroom and having a contraction at the same time. And that was completely unexpected because she said I wouldn't have a contraction for another hour or two after I used the bathroom. So I told Kelvin, I said, okay, here it goes. First contraction. So I went to the couch, and me, Kelvin, my husband, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my first daughter, Kai, she was almost 2 at the time. We were just chilling and waiting it out. I said, okay, the contractions have started. And so the process, here we go. We probably got a while. We just called Damaris to let her know that my contractions started. Well, I was expecting them to be further apart. Like my first pregnancy and my first birth, my contractions were like 45 minutes, an hour apart when they first started. But this time, my contractions were about 5 minutes apart. And they were intense. So I was on the couch thinking I would have a lot of time, but they were coming pretty close together and they were really intense, like not beginning contractions at all. So I told Kelvin, I was like, I gotta go upstairs because I gotta focus. I can't be down here anymore playing around. So I went upstairs and I asked him to go ahead and get the birth pool blown up, because we used the birth pool with my first daughter, Kai. She was born in the water, and I really enjoyed that process of the water birth. And so I asked him to go ahead and start blowing up the pool and getting it ready because these felt really intense. While he was doing that, I went upstairs and I sat on the toilet for a bit. I think I felt comfortable on the toilet because when I had my first birth, I went from the pool to the toilet and from the toilet to the pool. Those were my 2 spots where I felt comfortable. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go on the toilet and sit there until this birth pool is blown up and the water is put in. So I sat on the toilet. My contractions were getting more intense. So I asked Kelvin to call our midwife, Damaris, and he called her and she said, it sounds like, I was more in active labor than a starting labor. But they were so intense that I said, Kelvin, I need you to look down there and see what's going on because I almost feel like I have to push. And he looked down and he was like, oh my God, I see the head. So Damaris was like, okay, Sierra, if you feel like you have to push, then you go ahead and push and Kelvin can catch her. She said she was still 45 minutes away, but I could begin pushing if I felt that need. So I began pushing. I had 2 contractions of pushing before Zaya was out, and Kelvin caught her right on the toilet. It was super quick. Right after she came out, she started crying, and then I held her onto me and she started nursing right away. And we sat there on the toilet for a bit, I think just in shock and awe that the birth happened so fast and then that it happened without the midwife there. It was just between me and Kelvin, and my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, but that we did it without our midwife. We sat there for a while and we forgot that I had to just deliver the placenta. So it kind of just slid out into the toilet. Kelvin had to fish it out. But what was important is that Zaya was delivered safe and soundly. So he fished out the placenta and put it in a bowl, and we just sat there and waited. Eventually we moved to the bed, and Damaris finally got there and she checked Zaya out, and she was beautiful and healthy and everything seemed great. She was 5 pounds and 15 ounces. So Damaris was like 1 ounce off. Way to go, Damaris. Good job. And everything looked great. She did all of her measurements. She did all of the tests and, checked her out. And we were just happy as clams in the bed at home. I ended up taking a shower and getting clean. And then I got back in the bed and just relaxed with Zaya. This birth was very empowering. If I'm comparing it with my first birth was also super empowering. The difference between the two is that my first one was so long, so I had some time to get into the swing of everything, from the contractions being about an hour apart and being very mild to them growing to active labor to finally having her. That whole process went from 1:30 in the morning all the way to 8 p.m. at night. This time, Zaya's birth, my second birth, was only an hour long from the time I had the first contraction to the time that I birthed her. It was 12 contractions, period. And they weren't mild contractions. They were all very intense and contractions where I needed to focus, you know? So that was the difference between my two births.
One thing that I forgot to mention here was that my afterbirth pains for my first birth were way less extreme than the ones for my second birth. For my second birth, I went through what felt like heavier contractions for 24 hours. With my first birth, that didn't happen at all. I had a few menstrual cramp feeling, but I had to take ibuprofen after my second birth just to be able to deal with it. That's it. I just forgot to mention it in the moment.
And then of course with Zaya, I didn't have a midwife present. And so it was me and Kelvin. We didn't have time to be scared. So I didn't feel like fear of any kind because we just didn't have the time to have that emotion. So the only thing I really could feel in that birth is strong. So it was an amazing experience. I mean, I'm not having another child, but if I were to have another child, I definitely hold that experience in high regard. And I would want something just as phenomenal.